DETV for another DETV Sports exclusive. The Final Four is set down in New Orleans, and it's looking a little blue. Nick Alessandrini alongside Jason McCall and the coach, Mr. Ambassador himself to the Delaware Blue Coats, Joe Richmond. Guys, before we dive into some of these Elite Eight matchups, recaps, and look ahead to the Final Four, how we doing today? Obviously a windy day here on a Thursday. Coach, how we feeling?
Man, I'm feeling great. When I've called and, he says, let's make this happen, is a beautiful thing. And who would have thought that from where we started, these were the teams. I don't know about nobody else, but my bracket is jacked. But I'm waiting to see what we're going to talk about right now. This guy across from me, I don't even want to get started. No. Listen. He asked me.
Let's start it.
So he asked me. He asked me. No, he asked me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
I'm not your finish. All right.
But, from the Elite Eight to the Final Four, this is what it's all about. We've seen some great basketball up to now, and I think we're going to see is so much more to come. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think we could have maybe the best games of the tournament up ahead this weekend. Jason, now over to you. Now, I know Joe and I, we know you're a little bit excited with everything that's going on in the past week. How you feeling today?
That's how I'm feeling right there.
For the viewers at home on camera number 2 there, Jason has brought a gift to the table today. We're going to zoom out right here. The North Carolina Final Four hat, your regional champs.
Oh, I thought that was that new Swiffer they came out
with. That's a championship hat right there.
I thought that was it.
We're going to get drafted.
Okay.
Put the cap there, you guys can put it on. And, maybe when we come back to recap the national championship, maybe he'll have another hat in a week or so. So we'll have to wait and see. But North Carolina regional champs, a few weeks ago, if we were to rewind, fellas, Jason made that call here on DETV. He had them beating the Baylor Bears, and he had them made the same statement going to the national championship. And how about that, Joe? Jason was right. North Carolina on their way to the Final Four. We'll dive a little bit into that in a little while, but just initial impressions on Jason's North Carolina pick here today.
Well, I mean, listen, you can't go wrong picking North Carolina. You can't go
Even
wrong
as an 8 seed, right, this year?
Everybody that's in the top 4 right now that's left, you couldn't go wrong if you picked them. You know what I mean? No one's going to question it. But to pick that North Carolina team, I mean, I think he was being the youngest, the pup in the tournament right now. But he's showing that he's come under some really great coaching. He's shown what kind of player he was. You could see some of it in the players. And the one word I would give them right now is tenacity. They have a way about them that they just not giving. They know it's theirs, and they're like, you got to come and take it. And that's so my. If it was mine, my hat's off.
Well, there you have it. Jason, obviously a fantastic pick by you. North Carolina back on their way to the Final Four. We're going to dive more into the Tar Heels here in just a little bit. But, Jason, I'll ask you now. Elite Eight, we'll recap those here shortly. Initial impressions with your Elite Eight results and now with the Final Four being set. And like I said earlier at the top of the broadcast, it's looking pretty blue. A lot of blue bloods making their way to New Orleans.
A lot of blue bloods going to the Final Four. I mean, each school, to me, would be considered a blue blood, if you will.
I agree.
I think we're in for some very, very compelling games, some excellent basketball being played, a lot of great coaching matchups. I mean, it's a great coaching matchup with both games. You have Jay Wright versus Bill Self on one side.
And Hall of Famers.
Then you have the first-year coach Hubert Davis versus the legend Coach K. I mean,
can't write a better
Hollywood
script for that, right?
Cannot write a better script.
On the week of the Oscars, no less. Again, but we're going to stick to sports here on DETV. And let's talk about some of these Elite Eight recaps that we had a chance to check out over the weekend. We're going to get started with the Villanova Wildcats and the Houston Cougars, a 2-5 matchup up in that South region. That game in San Antonio, we made picks on that last week. Houston, one of the hottest teams coming into that game. They were playing so well in the tournament, and you could say the same thing about Villanova. And a close game, and defense was kind of the premier thing that we saw in that one. Both teams shooting under 30% from the floor, as we're going to get to the highlights here right now on your screen. Again, Nova and Houston winner going to punch their ticket to the Final Four, getting it started. It's the MVP of the region, Jermaine Samuels, knocking down that 3. And, Jason, he was big for the Wildcats so far in this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, they've been on riding the coattails of Samuels all the way to the Final Four, obviously. But he's been a great steadying force for that team. He rights the ship. And whatever they need a big bucket, they know who to go to.
Yeah, and obviously Nova, with that defense, they shot just 28% from the floor. They held Houston to under that percentage right here. They got up early in this one, Joe, and it kind of felt like it was really never too dangerous for them in that first half, late in the second half, but they played well in this one and just able to keep a significant lead throughout the first half of basketball.
Well, one thing you could say, Coach Sampson had his guys ready to play.
Yeah, always does.
You know, but when you get to this certain level, there's details. And you can see that Villanova stuck to the details. And Houston reverted a little bit to a little more running gun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they kind of got away from what they were, that got them, you know, that steadiness that they had leading up to. I think there was a trust factor missed in the last 4 minutes of that game somewhere. Don't know where to put that blame on for Houston, but I think they lost a little trust factor in what their scheme was and what their system was going in. And Jay Wright, as always, when he sees that little crease, he goes right, and that's all he needed to turn the tide for Villanova.
Again, defense name of the game as we go back to the highlights here. Daniels up off the window for 2 there. Nova up by 8, and we'll get to this in a little while. Daniels going to have to be big in the Final Four. Houston again trying to get on a run here late. Floater up, going to get the roll. Houston again was able to hang around throughout this ball game. It's just Villanova. It's the free throw shooting. We talked about it earlier in these prior few weeks. Historically, maybe the best free throw shooting team in college basketball history. 83% this team is shooting for the season from the free throw line. Samuels inside. That shot rejected there. Nova up by 6, a minute to go. And another big storyline here, guys, was Houston in the 3-ball. You see that floater goes inside, but 1 of 20 for Houston from the 3-ball. Kyler Edwards, who has been spectacular all tournament long from beyond the arc, could not hit a shot. And it was tough when you're Houston, you're playing against a tough defensive team like Villanova. If you're not able to knock down the outside shot like Houston has done in games before this one, it's going to be tough to beat them.
I mean, it was hard to watch. I'm like, everything they're shooting.
It wasn't ugly. I said a lot of defense in that one.
The three-point shooting was hard to watch. I mean, I haven't seen a team shoot like that in probably a long time. And, it was just bad.
But Jason, that's what I was talking about. Whatever that game plan was, when the shooting wasn't there, I just think there was too many opportunistic time for other guys to just jack shots up that probably weren't in the playbook to jack up any shots.
Yeah.
And that's what made the numbers look even worse because they did not give the extra pass, make the extra cut, to give that guy they just lost some discipline there, and I think that's what turned them right there.
Especially the last minutes of the game when they were maybe down like 4 or 5 points.
Yeah, they got
and instead of driving to the lane and getting a foul, you're shooting threes from like 30 feet out and you're not getting the rebound. So it kind of, like you said, they didn't stick to their playbook, started playing ISO ball and hero ball.
And that's not Houston, and that's what we said. Houston is not a hero ball
not
team.
Up to then,
not a hero ball. No,
not up until that game, that was not them.
Exactly, and again, that came back to hurt them there. But one of the biggest storylines in that Elite Eight matchup between Villanova and Houston was the loss of Justin Moore.
Big loss.
A huge loss for the Wildcats, again, averaging a little up over 15 points per game, 36% from beyond the arc. Not only that, he'll lock up your best player on the other end as well. So instrumental to this Wildcat team that they are the Big East champions. They are a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. Joe, I'll start with you here. How can they recover? Can they recover with the loss of Justin Moore, a team that already didn't have a lot of depth?
Well, you still got Gillespie. I love Caleb, Slater. I'm always going to root for Nana. We still got a Delawarean in the tournament. Hoping that he'll get a couple minutes, but I think it's Slater. I think Slater has to step up. The one thing I think we're missing with Justin is the leadership. You knew when something went wrong. Like Jason just alluded to about the ISO ball. Well, Justin was good at that, and it worked for Villanova. And everybody accepted it, that when they needed a basket, he knew exactly within the context of what they were running, he knew when to take his man and make it something that was needed. Not so much hero ball, but it was more, I got confidence, like Jay Wright and him, taking it on the shoulders, to get that when it's needed. And I think it's going to be, and I believe, and I hate to say it, but Gillespie has not been playing well.
Yeah,
I
especially
don't
when
know.
you look at the
I don't know
scoring.
it's the injury.
I'm glad somebody said it finally.
I mean, and don't get me wrong. Again, if you know
No,
Colin
I don't know
Gillespie,
if-
Big East Player of the Year, he can run the show, which he has been doing.
But he do
the
has
shooting hasn't been there, and
But he
obviously
does have
the
a
scoring.
bum knee.
Exactly right,
And
yeah.
I mean, it got rolled on a little bit in the game before. I
Yeah.
think they ran a back
Late
of
in
it,
the game.
and they're not really saying much about it. But I really think that knee is a problem. That's why he's shooting, because the first thing to go is your legs, and I think that's why his shooting is not what it's been since then.
And obviously, that first step also not being able to beat the defenders off the dribble initially, like he has,
And not keep
in
his
the
man in
past.
front of him either.
Yeah, and
Defensively.
you can attest that. Obviously, that's what would
Yes.
happen if you were to have a little lack in that knee. So Gillespie, hopefully they're going to need him to step up as well. You mentioned Braden Slater. He had a nice stretch in the regular season where he was up over double digits for about 7 games in a row there. There were a couple games in this NCAA tournament where he hasn't scored at all.
Yes.
So he's going to have to step up. They're
Yes.
going to need him to now. And we talked about the depth. Daniels was the only guy they brought off the bench against Houston. They played 6 guys. Justin Moore goes down, obviously one of your more important pieces. Daniels inserts himself into that starting lineup. Now you have no depth. You have not one person that Jay Wright has brought off the bench. Is that something that could hurt them against Kansas?
Yes,
Yes.
Kansas has a pretty deep roster, and they can play maybe up to 10 guys. And I think that Nova has to match that and play a few more players as well, because you need fresh bodies. If anything, maybe get a few extra fouls to slow down their star players, but you can't just play 6 people and expect to win
And
a game.
play them early.
Early.
I think play them early. Boom, 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 situational basketball, like Jace just said, and I think that's what's going to be a key.
Yeah, Antoine, he might have to get some minutes now off the bench for Villanova. The freshman Longino's out with an injury. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Wildcats recover there. Again, Justin Moore, words might not describe how instrumental he's been to Villanova. We're going to see how they do without him. But if there is a team that can recover with the type of style and the type of fundamentals that they play with, you might argue that Villanova would be the best team capable of recovering after losing a star player. So we'll see how they do. Obviously, though, they're in New Orleans set for the Final Four. Let's head now down to Kansas and Miami, guys. Miami, a 10 seed, find their way to the Elite Eight, one of the oldest teams in the field coming into that game against Kansas. Kansas, your Big 12 champions. What a stretch it was for them. They've won 9 games in a row. They were playing really well during that Big 12 run. Remy Martin, who has been kind of off the mark for them all season long, is finally starting to put it together, having a phenomenal run. He was the MVP of the Midwest region, and he's their 6th man. He came off and did it off the bench for Kansas. Bill Self was talking about how important he's been, obviously the transfer from Arizona State. But Kansas looking good against Miami, at least in the second half. We'll start with the highlights right now in the first. And it was Miami early in this one, Jason, and a lot of it had to do with Cameron McGusty. There's Isaiah Wong on the step-back 3, giving the Hurricanes the early lead. But it was all McGusty in the first half, though, for Miami.
Yeah, McGusty had it going early, and he's been scoring for them like that all year, like 4th lead scorer in ACC, first team all ACC. He's been carrying them pretty much the whole season with his scoring, especially in the tournament. So early and often in the first half, but once Kansas got going, and it changed the tide of the game.
Yeah, again, Miami, though, hanging around there in the first half. They led 35-29 at the break, and a lot of things were going Miami's way as the 10 seed. People were thinking, man, Kansas hasn't been playing that well. Well, the tables, they turned in that second half, a 10-0 run to get things started, Joe. They never looked back. 45-17, they outscored the Hurricanes in the second half. It was 45-17, all with a 10-0 run to get things started. You don't find big runs like that, especially in the Elite Eight, but Kansas maybe with their best stretch of basketball so far in the tournament there.
Well, I think Mr. Jason did pick Miami in one of these. Didn't
I
he
think
somewhere?
I might have as well.
I think I may have picked that.
Because you was like the U. So I remember the U.
I picked him in this game.
That was an Iowa State game.
That was Iowa. That was this game.
Not
But
this
I know you had some trust in them.
Yeah.
But it was well put. But not here.
Not there.
Yeah.
Not there.
Yeah. And Kansas just when you start talking about when you talk about being physical, the physicality, it just showed up. And the one thing I look at, I do open gym on Mondays and Wednesdays, and last night I had open gym, and the score was 12-5, and I looked at the one team, I said, oh, y'all done gave up. You can see body language.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I looked at body language from Miami, and you can see at certain points in times, they just look like, what are we going to do? Because it just started getting so physical, and they had nothing else. And we talked about that earlier. A lot of teams, you can get up and down the court. But when you get to this level, you gotta stay disciplined and run your sets.
You have to.
And once Kansas started running, Miami just started, we're going to match on basket for basket. And that's a recipe for disaster right there.
And again, what a game it was.
Trade twos for threes.
And Braun, a good game for him. David McCormick, the big fella, was a presence down low. He had a fantastic game, maybe the best of the tournament. He had 15. And then Ochai Agbaji, who's somebody you talked about, it was your bold prediction. He was going to give him 30. Well, he was close. He gave him 18, maybe his best game of the tournament as well. One of the remaining Naismith finalists in the Final Four, the lone remaining Naismith finalist in Agbaji. What did you see from him?
I saw the game I needed to see from him. I saw the complete game that his team needed from him. Remy Martin can only do but so much. McCormick can only do but so much. Agbaji, if you're in the, like you said, he's a Wooden Award finalist, Naismith Award finalist. Yep. He's proven it, and he proved it in that game, and he'll probably prove it again in the Final Four.
Yeah, he knocked down some big shots for the Jayhawks there. He finished with 18 points in the win. Also out-rebounding Miami 25-11 in that second half. McCormick, a big part of that. It's going to be tough to beat a team.
That's what I'm talking about, that physicality.
Yep, and it showed.
And when you and at the end of the day, like Jason said, when you have all those accolades, those type of guys have to show up. You know, at the end of the day, talent just wins out. And Kansas had more talent.
Yes, they did in that Elite Eight matchup. So Kansas and Villanova, we're going to dive into that matchup a little bit more as we progress here in the show. But let's take a look now over at that East region, right up the road at the Wells Fargo Center. It was the University of North Carolina, the Tar Heels, taking on the Cinderella story, Shaheen Holloway, and the St. Peter's Peacocks. Yes. So again, the Peacocks seem to be defying the odds every game leading up to this point.
Every game.
But North Carolina, again, since March, one of the highest powered offenses in the country, #1 in certain stat metrics. They have been one of the hottest teams in the tournament. Jason, you've obviously said that a few times here on the show. They can beat you from all different ways, especially offensively, Baycott underneath. And they played a complete game once again against St. Peter's, and it kind of looked like this one. Jason, I'll start with you here. North Carolina had this one from the tip.
Yeah, they had it from the tip. The game started off a little bit slow, though, honestly, with both teams. But once Carolina got going, it showed. But in the first half, St. Peter's couldn't buy a bucket.
No, they could not.
Missed layup after layup, open shots. They were playing tight. But they did go on a mini run later on in the game, but of course a little bit later. But they came out too tight, and it cost them.
And that's something we hadn't seen out of St. Peter's in any of they didn't come out tight for one of those games that they won in those upsets. Something about North Carolina, maybe in that Elite Eight, kind of maybe starstruck them a little bit, because as Jason said, they came out real slow in that one, Joe.
Well, I don't care if they came out slow or if they came out whenever. It don't make no difference. I mean, shout out to Coach. Yo, great job.
Absolutely.
St. Peter's can't take nothing away from him. But I think Davis showed that he's been coached by some of the best. He's played with some of the best. And just like Holloway said, they're not scared of nobody. There's nothing that they can show them that he ain't already seen. I think Davis is thinking the same thing. We ain't scared of nobody. There's nothing that anybody can send out here and show us what we ain't already seen too. So here you had those two alpha males going at it. But I'm going to say this, and the one player, and I know he like Baycott and all those in love, but I think Manick, and I say
Brady Manick, yeah,
to me he's the X factor.
I'll agree. I mean, I'll agree because he has an inside-outside game,
and he brings it. He knows the game.
X Factor, Brady Manick. Right here on the sheet, you got it. Right there.
I'm serious. He knows the game. He knows when he's needed. He knows how to bring it, and I think that's what I think the players feed off of that, because his energy, when he goes, their energy level goes. Yes,
he is the heart and soul of that team, and you can see it all season long with the Oklahoma transfer and in big moments.
And St. Peter's had no one to match that. And just him. Nobody to match that energy right there.
And the perfect example of how important Manick is would be against that Baylor team. They're up by 20, 25 points. He gets ejected with that elbow. We're going to overtime. 33-18 run. Jason knows it right off the bat. So that just shows you how important Brady Manick is to the North Carolina team. As we back to the highlights here, 59-38, Caleb Love in transition. Again, this one was all North Carolina. You take a look now at the box score. Jason, North Carolina just 41% shooting from the floor. That includes 27% from three, 62% from the free throw line. So not exactly a great shooting night totally for UNC, and maybe that's because they led by 20 throughout, but also able to out-rebound St. Peter's 49-33.
It was too much Baycott, too much, man. Like, I think, what Baycott, how many ran like 23?
20 and 22.
20 and 22, right? 2020 game.
Yep, 2020 game, yep.
In the tournament.
Yep, in the tournament.
Yes.
I mean, 2020 is 2020. That's amazing. I mean, and that was the key to the game. His rebounding, his defense, and he hit his free throws this game. That's been kind of his Achilles heel a lot of the season. But in the tournament, he hit more of his free throws, and R.J. Davis and Caleb Love setting the ship. And then you have Leaky Black playing the defense he normally plays, and Carolina they were just too powerful for St. Peter's, like you said. Coach Holloway. Great season, great job, great securing the bag.
I was
going
saying,
back
we
home,
mentioned last week in
Seton Hall.
So we'll say that on the show now. Again, if you haven't heard yet, Holloway will be taking the head coaching job at his alma mater, Seton Hall. So a nice step for him as he had the press conference today, right, Jason?
Yeah, he had the press conference today. It was a classy move where he made sure that his St. Peter's team got a standing ovation at the press conference before this guy started. So classy move by a classy individual. People forget. The last Jersey team to go to the final, to the Sweet 16 was his Seton Hall team in 2000 until the St. Peter's team this year. So
something magic about Shaheen Holloway over there in New Jersey. Again, Baycott 20 and 22.
Are we able to run back the highlights of the game? Because if you see one thing about St. Peter's leading up to this, if you notice their made basket, they had to keep calling guys, the press, where before it was automatic.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. When you got what Mike Tyson said, everybody got to play a plan until you get hit. Yep. And I think they got hit first. That's why you talk about the slow start. So now, guys, before when they made a basket, they were already up. Now they got to remind guys, yo, we pressing here, and so something got lost. And I think it was the way that North Carolina just came out, and I think they felt it, and they like you'll see when St. Peter's make a made basket, they just keep forgetting to come back and play D, and somewhere in transition, you just can't miss those assignments. You can't be forgetting those things. And I think somewhere along the line, they lost their discipline, and it showed. And that's why I think that's early. They weren't never the same, and they were playing catch up the whole rest of the game.
You're exactly right. Get punched in the mouth. They absolutely did. Baycott 20 and 22, Brady Manick 19, and Caleb Love with 14. Again, didn't need Davis to do too much in that win over St. Peter's. But North Carolina now finds their way to the Final Four, where we'll get to their opponent here in just a moment as well. Let's take a look now at the West region with Arkansas and Duke. And when the bracket came out, Joe and Jason, one of the things a lot of people had maybe looked down the road and said, hey, how about a potential Duke-North Carolina Final Four? Again, not many people maybe would have guaranteed or picked it in their selected brackets, but it was something that people were paying attention to. And now for the first time in history, we're going to have North Carolina and Duke in the NCAA tournament. But let's recap how Duke got there. First, a tough matchup with Musselman and the Razorbacks out of the ACC. We'll take a look at those highlights now between Arkansas and Duke. And Arkansas obviously coming off a big win over Gonzaga. They were going to try to ride that momentum right here in against Duke. And obviously this one was a close one throughout. There's a little spin. Note gets inside, goes off the window. 2-0 Arkansas in front.
Great game.
It was a great game. And right here able to get in. Jeremy Roach with the Euro step up and in for him as well. Back and forth these two teams went. Joe, what was kind of the difference to you in this one? Griffin elevates, able to knock down the mid-range right inside the free throw line.
Well, I'm gonna be nice and I'm gonna act like I'm saying something amazing because I had Gonzaga. I ain't gonna lie. I ain't gonna sit up there and act like I didn't have them. I had Gonzaga, but Arkansas sold me something. And the one thing I loved about them is they just kept coming. And one thing about, if anybody knows, when you play Duke, you show any sign of
weakness, it's over.
It's a wrap. And Arkansas never did that. So I'm excited for them. And Coach Musselman, he's no stranger to these types of games and situations. He's not overwhelmed by the moment. And I think he had his players well prepared. It's just that Duke just had the better players.
Like you said earlier, talent often wins out.
Yes.
And in this game, I can honestly say that's all it was because effort was even.
Yes.
The hustle was even. It was just the talent of Duke with Williams and Roach and Ben Carroll and the list goes on, and Griffin.
It really does go on.
And the luck just ran out for Arkansas. But again, great season for Coach Musselman being down in Arkansas, and they'll be back.
Yes,
Yeah,
they
most
will. Again, we
definitely.
saw them last year.
Yeah, they're back-to-back
Yeah.
Final Fours for the
Back-to-back-
first time since
back-to-back Elite
1995.
Eights, yeah.
You know, so,
And-
Elite Eights, sorry.
So 42-33 there, 45-33, that big shot at the buzzer. Then 47-35, Arkansas trying to hang around. Jalen Williams finds a cutter on the baseline, throws that one down, 51-39. And again, Arkansas, have some talent. There's Jalen Williams again inside, gets two more. But overall, Duke able to maintain kind of that 6 to 8 point lead. Here they are, 53-45, as Arkansas tried to make a run. But Duke able to hold him off, count that one, plus the foul for Williams. But you look now at the stats, Duke 54.7% from the floor, 40% from three. Pretty good shooting numbers for the Duke Blue Devils there. And they out-rebounded Arkansas 35-24 on the boards. We talked about this before we went on the air, Joe, and that was the importance of Mark Williams for Duke. Obviously doing a great job rebounding, rim protecting, and he's really making his presence felt for the Blue Devils here in the tournament.
Well, it's been consistent in every game you've talked about. It came down to rebounding. It always did, you know, and the physicality, once again, showed the team that rebounded won the game. And this is exactly what happened to them. I still think, like Jason said, they will be here, but at the end of the day, you know, you got to get them 50-50 plays. You got to get
Loose
them.
balls,
Don't lose
everything,
Yeah,
you know,
and
take
but like you
charges.
said, the hustle was there, the energy level was matched. It was just a talent. But when you start committing to rebounding, that's a whole nother dynamic within the game itself. And Duke showed why they won the game, because that edge is really why they did it.
Williams, 12 points, 12 rebounds, double digits for him. Griffin, 7 of 9 from the floor, 18 points. You know what he can do as a UNC fan, hit to hurt them earlier in the year.
I think he was the star of the game. 7 for 9 from the floor. I mean, if he's clicking on all cylinders like that,
Yeah.
9 out of 10 the team's going to, whoever playing against them, you're going to lose, because if Griffin's clicking, then you have Ben Carroll again with his skill set, and with Roach and everyone else. But if Griffin's clicking like that, they're very hard to beat.
Griffin, over 45% from three on the season. So again, if he's able to hit those threes, as Jason mentioned, they're going to be really tough to beat. And obviously, as a UNC fan, he obviously did some damage to them earlier in the year. And it's going to be interesting to see now how that Duke-UNC matchups go defensively, which we'll talk about here in a second. Well, let's talk about it right now. On to the Final Four. You have our recap. So let's dive in to these two matchups on Saturday night. Let's start with the Tar Heels and Duke right here. That's going to be the second matchup of the night on Saturday. Duke, the 2 seed, North Carolina, the 8 seed, both making their way to New Orleans. Should be a fantastic matchup, maybe one of the biggest matchups in NCAA history, again, with this being Coach K's final year. So if we're going to recap here shortly, Jason, let's talk a little bit about how UNC got here. It all started with that big win over Norfolk State, and then obviously an overtime win over Baylor, and then UCLA. Which matchup to you stood out in their run here as we head to the Final Four?
I will say the guard play. The guard play has been very consistent and steady for this entire tournament. And I will say the turning point was the Baylor game, because they had to withstand their best punch, and then overtime. It took them overtime to win the game.
Yep.
But after that, there was no looking back. So if it was any game that would have been a turning point for them in the tournament, would be that Baylor game once Manick got ejected for the flagrant 2. But ever since then, they've just been on a rampage, a higher scoring team in the tournament.
Yep.
I want to say 90 points a game. But against this matchup here with Coach K and Duke, Coach K's 13th Final Four appearance, record all-time for individual coaches. North Carolina, they're 21st Final Four, most of any school. Also the most tournament wins in NCAA history. So a lot of different factors for them. 2022, 40th anniversary of the shot. Michael Jordan, also in New Orleans.
Yeah,
So
exactly right. So how about
maybe
that?
history repeat itself. We'll see.
How about that again? Hubert Davis looking to be the first coach to take his team to the Final Four in his first season since Bill Guthridge back in 1998, I believe was the year.
Whoa.
Yes, it was. So
Good
how about
Lord.
that?
Also
so
a Tar
Hubert
Heel.
Davis, also a Tar Heel, exactly right. So again, North Carolina, they're going to meet Duke. Joe, what kind of stands out to you in this matchup? Maybe keys for both of these teams. UNC, they rank 6th nationally in rebounding. I mean, both of these teams top 5 in offensive efficiency. What's going to be the difference here to you between Duke and UNC on Saturday?
Well, I think Jason hit every part of this, and once again, it's going to come down, like I said, to the details. When you get here, it's who's going to trust their game plan all the way through, who's going to run the sets all the way through, who's going to stand up and sub in for that 2 minutes and give 2-minute effort. You know what I mean? It's going to take those little things when you have a game of this magnitude. I really believe that the players are ready for to play for Coach K. I really think they're going to run through a wall for him. I think North Carolina is going to get a whole nother level of Duke-type basketball in front of them. But I think that they're ready. North Carolina has everything they need to win it. I am not a Duke a fan, but I would love to see Coach K go out with a win. He's been so instrumental to the game. He's been such a class act for the game. And I believe that this game is going to be one for the ages.
I have to agree with you. I think this is going to be a fantastic game, maybe one of the best we've ever seen. Like you mentioned, Joe, two of the great offensive teams, Jason, but not a lot of depth. When you talk about North Carolina, the thing that's been thrown around is the Iron Five, right? They've got those 5 starting guys. Duke, similar 5 starting guys, both maybe the most impressive starting lineups in the entire NCAA tournament for both of these programs. What's your keys to the game, Jason, there?
Staying out of foul trouble.
For North Carolina?
For North Carolina, stay out of foul trouble. Actually, for both teams, but in particular North Carolina, if you get R.J. Davis or Caleb Love in foul trouble, the one Achilles heel for Carolina that I've seen all year, they don't have a secondary ball handler off the bench.
And we saw that against Baylor.
Yes,
we did.
So they had to stay out of foul trouble, and Manick just has to play his game. I think Manick is, like we said earlier, the X factor to that team, and if Manick plays his game and the guards just steady the ship, I think with the defensive rotations, with the Iron Five and a couple players off the bench like Puff Johnson, I think players like that, it could be a good time for them, a great matchup. But Duke has equal amount of firepower, so this game will come down to who has the ball last. I just really think it's who has the ball last is going to win the game.
And obviously, you look at Duke, you got some offensive firecrackers. You got Griffin, you got Banchero. Jeremy Roach, since being inserted in that starting lineup ahead of the NCAA tournament, has been fantastic. And we talk about Leaky Black here a few times. Jason, you specifically, he's going to have a big role in one of these games. If you're North Carolina, Leaky Black's one of the best defenders in the country. If you're now Hubert Davis, where are you going to put Leaky Black? Are you going to put him on Banchero? Are you going to put him on Griffin? What are you doing with Leaky Black, Joe? I'll start with you.
I think you have to put him on Banchero. You have to. And Banchero has to step up. He's probably the projected #1 pick in the draft, so he has to play like it right now. He has to show everybody out there that I'm the best player on the planet in college basketball. And here today, I know you guys have this, and I know the history, but this is my time. And I think if they're going to have any chance of winning, then Leaky Black has to take that challenge and say, not today.
And he's shut down everybody so far.
Yes. But Banchero's a different beast. 6'10", strong, shoot, can handle the ball, and he doesn't get rattled.
He really does
not. He does not get rattled.
Most guys that Leaky got on after a couple times, he's rattled them. But I would like to see once he steps to, because I look at guys' demeanor, and Banchero got like a poker face when he's out there playing, and you don't know if he's losing or was that a bad play or a bad. You can't tell. So I would love to see when he steps on here and he see that Leaky's coming across to see him. I want to see what his demeanor is from the door.
I mean, he was caught winking at the camera with 35 seconds left to go in that Elite Eight game. That shows you the type of composure that Paulo Banchero has. Again, most likely going to be the top pick in the draft. So he's got that clutch gene in him. He's not too worried about anything coming down the stretch. But Jason, as Joe mentioned, that's going to be his toughest assignment offensively if, in fact, he is on Paulo Banchero. And in the past, we've seen him on A.J. Griffin, who's also an electric scorer. What would you do if you're Hubert Davis?
I would rotate Leaky Black, Baycoat, and Puff Johnson off the bench to get a couple fouls in, maybe Puff score 5 or 6 points to kind of spell Baycoat or Black while they're on the bench. But you have to defend him by committee. You can't just put one player on him.
Weighing down.
He reminds me of another Duke player, similar skill set, same height. Reminds me of Jason Tatum.
Yeah, he does a little bit.
He has that skill set. So You can't really, you can't crowd him. He has the inside-outside game. He's a great passer out of double teams
passer.
already.
I think that might be the best part of his
already.
game.
He's a
his
great
passing
passer.
ability,
He's a great passer, and when you have a player like that who can pretty much has all the tools, you can only slow them down. You can't really contain them.
And I think he's at his stage. He's a little bit bigger than Jason.
He's about
You know
30
what I mean?
pounds bigger. Yeah,
he just, you know, and that's what's going. Like you said, so it's going to have to be by committee. And I think Baycott is the one that's going to be the X factor in that defensive rotation.
But again, with Baycott defending him, if he gets in foul trouble, then that's where North Carolina is going to have to really go back to the drawing board and see what else sticks during the game.
It was Baycott out of the game again, rebounding an instrumental part of North Carolina's success this season. Baycott may be the best rebounder in the nation, so if you're able to lose him, get him in foul trouble, even Brady Manick as well, if he's battling foul trouble, that could hurt North Carolina. Again, Duke, they've been great at their dribble penetration so far in the NCAA tournament. Banchero's been able to do it. Roach has been able to do it. They've been able to find threes, and you see Banchero and Roach get into the paint. There's little dribble handoffs right inside to Williams, who's been dunking the ball out the wazoo here in the NCAA tournament. For me, the X factor is going to be A.J. Griffin for Duke. Banchero, I think you can know what to expect from him. Obviously, Wendell Moore can score the basketball. Jeremy Roach has been great for Duke. I think A.J. Griffin, if he's able to knock down those shots from the outside, 45% three-point shooter. He's been hit or miss so far in the NCAA tournament. But if he's able to hit from the outside and they're able to drive, get those open threes, I think that's going to be a big key for Duke on Saturday.
I agree. I agree. I mean, with Duke, if they're hitting threes, it's a big problem for no matter who they're playing against. If they're hitting threes, that means that you're opening up driving lanes. And once they open up driving lanes, you can't stop them at any phase on offense. So if they're hitting threes early, then they can drive to the basket. Then, like I said, the drive and dish game has been lethal for them all season.
But the one thing I love about both teams, unlike the other two teams that are on the other side, in Villanova and Kansas, they don't fall in love with the three.
Oh, yeah.
You know, North Carolina does not fall in love with the three, neither does Duke. They have other ways of breaking you down and beating you. So I think they can stay disciplined in it, whereas Arkansas, Miami, those guys couldn't. And I think when the three is not going, they have other ways to go to other sets to say, you know what, we can still score in this way. So we don't have to fall in love and hover around the three-point line with just a couple dribble handoffs to get a shot up.
Again, two of the best offensive teams in the country. Could be a shootout on Saturday night between Duke and UNC. That's going to be a great one for the ages. But the one tipping off just shortly before that one is going to be Villanova and Kansas. The last time these two teams met was back in 2016 when Villanova got the win over Kansas in blowout fashion. They went on to win the national championship back in 2016. In Houston, Texas. What a shot that was. I'm sorry, Jason. That's a touchy subject for Jason McCall back in 2016.
Why?
Hey, we're both back in the Final Four this year, right? So it should be a good one. Maybe we'll have another rematch between Villanova
we won't.
and North Carolina.
That was tough,
And
though.
let's take a look at this one now. Let's dive in. Kansas and Villanova. Kansas and Villanova both on 9-game win streaks. They're both conference champions. Nova in the Big East, Kansas in the Big 12. Villanova, you could argue, maybe playing a little bit better defensively, obviously, so far in the tournament. Kansas with their best half of basketball so far, obviously, in that second half against Miami. I'll start with you, Jason, here. Keys to the game for Kansas and Villanova.
Abaji has to get going early. He sets the tone. They feed off his energy. If him and McCormick have to set the tone early. The inside has to be an inside presence early, because Villanova's weakness to me is their inside game. They really don't have big guys. They have a bunch of big guards.
Yes.
And then you just got to throw Dixon in there as their lone big fellow.
Lone big fellow. So I think if they establish an inside presence early, that'll be the key to the game for them.
Joe, what are your keys to the game here for Kansas and Villanova?
Well, Kansas 16 times, Final Four. Villanova 6 times, Final Four. That says it all. But Jason hits it right on the top. I think it's going to be rebounding. It's going to come down to rebounding. And if you add that other element to it, because it's all the same, it's going to come down to second chance shots. And Villanova is going to need them more than Kansas because they don't have the bodies. So they're going to have to win the 50-50 game. they're going to have to get every loose basketball. They're going to have to dive after everything because Jason made the biggest point. They just don't have an inside presence. So they have to they have to rely on hitting their basketball if you
Long
can't get
rebound
to
on
it
Caroms,
and get it
yeah.
up and just attacking off of that.
Yeah.
You can't let them reset. So as soon as you get it, you have to go and attack because if you let them reset and get into sets, I think they cannot win the half-court game. I just think with Moore not being there, that's going to hurt them.
Huge blow. Huge blow.
But it's going to come down to rebound once again. And if Remy Martin is who he is, it's going to be a long night for Gillespie. It's going to be a long night for Gillespie.
They may have too many sips of Remy Martin. Not careful.
And you could make the argument also, Justin Moore has been the guy to be
Yes.
checking Agbaji on the other end defensively for Villanova, so obviously they lose him. Daniels will be in that starting lineup. Slater going to have to step up, as we alluded to numerous times already. But you look at Kansas, Remy Martin, who, Joe, you just talked about, coming over from Arizona State, was a Big 12 preseason player of the year candidate there for Kansas. Hurts that knee, never really got it going when he came back, didn't come back, didn't play that well, and then all of a sudden here comes the tournament, and they go bring him off the bench, and he's back to Arizona State form, averaging over 20 points per game. Joe, I asked you this one here. Who has to have a better game for Kansas to win? Is it going to have to be Remy Martin or Agbaji?
I think Remy. I think Agbaji is going to be who he is. You know,
That's true.
he doesn't. You know, he can get things off the rebound. He can get defensive. But I think Remy, if he continues to play like he's been playing, I just love the way he's played. You can't set up for him. You know, he's not robotic. He's herky-jerky when he needs to be. He's downhill when he needs to be. He's stop and pop when there's not one place you can say, oh, we can stop him here. And he just knows that offense. And when he gets in and does the little dishing, it's a wrap. So I think Remy, because when you talk about a player like that, all that he's been through at Arizona State, the injuries, the things of that nature, and you get a coach like Self who understands that and says, I trust you, go out here and do you. And that's what he's done, and he hasn't missed since.
Yeah, that's a perfect example there. Jason, you've been a big Agbaji guy. You had him with a big game in the Elite Eight. He answered your call there. Who's it going to be this time in the Final Four for the Jayhawks? Agbaji, maybe even McCormick, or do you think Remy Martin?
I think for them to beat Nova, who is a great team, they didn't make it here on accident, made it here on purpose. So I think it has to be a three-headed monster of Agbaji, McCormick, and Remy. I think Kansas is probably going to need maybe 3 or 4 players around 13 to 15 points.
Which is what they've been doing in these wins.
So they got to have a balanced scoring attack still. At least 4 players in double figures to even have a chance of beating Nova. And for Nova, they have to play, like we said, other teams with short benches. They're going to have to expand their bench. They're going to have to play a few more players. You can't play 6 guys, especially with
now
Moore
it'd be
being
5,
out.
right?
There's 5 guys. Right. You got to go at least 7, 8 deep in this game.
Again, the Jayhawks have been a little bit streaky offensively. We saw that in the first half against Miami. So, but if they're able to put together a full game offensively, then they're going to be one of the toughest teams to beat. They've shown that. That's why they're here. And interestingly enough, Kansas, the only program without a former 5-star recruit on the team. They're in the Final Four. So how about that, Bill Self in Kansas? That's unusual.
I mean, you talked about that off the air before we began. And I couldn't believe that stat. I said that's unheard of for a Kansas team. I can't think of any Kansas team.
I thought Remy and Agbaji was that blew me away too. I'm sorry.
Just shows you how great of a Coach Self is. I mean, in 4 and 5, not that far away. Let's be honest.
Right.
But it's still a great coaching job this year again by Coach Self.
But I think another thing with Villanova, they got to stay away from silly fouls.
And they can't afford foul trouble.
Right, and that's just like you said. If they don't, they're going to have to expand the bench. But if they get in foul trouble early, and there's an opportunity here
Samuels
for them
especially playing down low, battling for rebounds, that's going to be big.
And there's an opportunity here for that. I see that dynamic for some reason. It just popped in my head that I see that Villanova is in a situation where they could get into a lot of silly fouls, reaching fouls, over the back fouls, so I'm hoping that doesn't show itself, but if it does, I think that's going to be something else that need to be watched.
Again, both of these teams, Villanova and Kansas, one of the 2 oldest teams in the Final Four, no less, but in the tournament overall. Some guys have been there for 5 years plus on both sides for Kansas and Villanova. So the long journeys for both of those rosters, but here they are in the Final Four. So very fitting there. It's, again, all blue blood territory here in the Final Four, as I do consider Villanova blue blood. Villanova, Kansas, thank you. See, again, that's a discussion for another day. Joe, I would assume you're on our side on that one as well with Villanova as a blue blood?
Yes, I mean, but when you talk about blue blood, we talk about the blue coats.
By the way, blue coats, they got a game tomorrow night, don't they?
Yeah, we can throw in another blue blood, the Delaware Blue Coats. Yo, it's mental health awareness tomorrow night at George Chase Fieldhouse, 7 o'clock game. We're going to go purple, though, for mental health awareness.
That's a great
thank you, Christiana Care Highmark, for bringing it. We're going to have a host. The Delaware Lieutenant Governor Hall Long is going to be there. So come on out. The uniforms that the players will be wearing will be autographed and auctioned via Dash online, and all the proceeds with Delaware be donated to Delaware Goes Purple Initiative. And all the fans will get a purple coat T-shirt thanks to Sarah Gibney of the Newark Urgent Care. So please come on out tomorrow, 7 o'clock game. We're down to our last 2 games.
How about
Friday and Saturday. Saturday we're playing the Wisconsin Herd, the Milwaukee Bucks G League affiliate. So come on out this Friday, this Saturday, 7 o'clock games as we make our playoff push.
Playoff
we secure the playoffs for your Delaware Blue Coats, and those blue bloods have nothing on my blue coats, but we're going to be rooting for them just like we're rooting for the Blue Coats.
That's absolutely right. We're excited. It's playoff time right around the corner for the Delaware Blue Coats. You can catch them right here on DETV. But guys, it's that time of the show now where we're going to dive into our Final Four picks. It's that time. It's that time. We're going to take a look now. We'll get your picks and your reasoning as to why you picked your winner. Let's start with that first matchup. Villanova without Justin Moore. They're going to be going against the top seed in the Midwest, the Kansas Jayhawks, led by Bill Self. Again, last time these two teams met, and it really mattered back in 2016. Jay Wright and Villanova blowout win over Kansas, but again, different rosters, different times. How's this one going to go down, Joe? Start with you, Villanova and Kansas. You're picking why?
Well, shout out to my man Dan, former trainer for the Blue Coats, now trainer for the Villanova Wildcats.
There you go.
But hey Dan, sorry. Jay Wright is my guy. I love the staff over there. I love the players. I would have loved to see it happen, but I'm saying I believe Justin Moore is that big of an impact. Yeah. And when you're going up against a team as disciplined, like I said, Kansas 16 times is no. Like Jason said, is not by accident. Just like he said, Villanova being there is no accident that Kansas has played the way they played coming through the Midwest where they're at right here. And I'm going to go with Kansas.
Jason, over to you now. Kansas and Villanova, winner, going to punch their ticket to the NCAA championship. Who do you got there in the first matchup in New Orleans?
3 words. Rock chalk. Jayhawk. I think with Villanova losing more, that's the key. It's the X factor. It's elephant in the room. You can't hide that. It's a glaring omission from their lineup. I expect Samuels to have a big game. I expect Gillespie to also have a pretty decent game.
For sure,
but like I've been saying all segment long, what is Slater going to give in this game? So if he gives anything reminiscent of a decent game, they have a chance, but I still think Kansas is going to win and secure a spot in the championship game.
This camera on me right here.
Uh-oh.
I'm going with the Villanova Wildcats. Without Justin Moore, I know we talked about it, and like you both, I agree. I think he's the most instrumental. I think he's the most instrumental player.
I was about to walk off
for Villanova. But as we talked about earlier in the broadcast, if there's one team that can be built for losing a star player and can continue to play on, it's the Villanova Wildcats and Jay Wright. They're going to want to play their pace against Kansas, slow things down like we saw against Houston, who likes to run and gun. They got out of their game. Villanova was able to take advantage. With that defense they've got, they can shut down or at least slow down Agbaji and Remy Martin, who struggled a little bit in that game against Miami. If they're able to slow them down, play their pace. Gillespie hits some threes. Daniels could have a big game. And like you said, if Slater can get closer, maybe into double-digit scoring like he did for a part of that Big East season this year, I think they could do it. And I'm going to go down with all those things to happen in this game, I think Villanova gets the upset.
You're going to
victory.
go down with your team, too. I don't see them beating Kansas.
Jay, it must be the shoes. They can't see it, but it must be the shoes.
It's got to be the shoes.
It got to be the shoes.
It's got to be the shoes.
We'll get a picture of them shoes later. Y'all know what I'm talking about. It's got to be the shoes.
We'll be back here, I'm sure, for our national championship preview, and we'll be talking about the Cats then, too. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm going Villanova. Both of these guys are going with Kansas. Again, Kansas slight favorite there if you were to look at it that way. Now let's head over to Duke and North Carolina. Maybe the biggest game of the tournament, biggest game of the season, biggest game in NCAA history. Potential Coach K's last dance, if you will. He's in the Final Four in New Orleans with Duke, taking on first-year man Hubert Davis and North Carolina. Again, we mentioned it a few times. Both of these teams near the top in terms of offensive efficiency. Could be a shootout on the back end of that doubleheader on Saturday night. Jason, I'm going to start with you, kind of because I kind of know where you're going. Duke and North Carolina, your winner and why?
Love Coach K.
Good preface.
Love everything he's done for the game of basketball. USA men's coach, righted the ship after the 04 debacle. He's coached a lot of great talent at Duke over the years. 50 and 47 all-time versus the Tar Heels.
A lot of stats before this answer.
But I say all that to say this.
Yeah.
Where's my camera?
Where's the music?
No. Where's my camera? I say all that to say this.
I should have put it on.
40 years, 82 with Mike Jordan hitting the shot. 2022, another Tar Heel team comes down to the net on Bourbon Street. Tar Heels, nothing else.
So, Jason, he's leaping at the Final Four. He's punching that national championship ticket, Joe. UNC and Duke. Jason's going, of course, with his Tar Heels. Your winner and why? Coach K, potentially his last game. What do you think?
You know, and I can't argue with nothing that Jason just said. I really can't. But I think when you factor in emotion with all the other factors that was mentioned, I think this is a win for Coach K. I think these players are ready. I think they're solid. I think their game plan is they're going to stick to it, as I believe North Carolina will as well. It's just something that tells me there's really you throw them both up in the air, 21, Final Four, 17, and they're both going to hit. Doesn't mean anything. Even though it's Hubert Davis' first one as a head coach, but he's not a baby in this. He's not no pup in this. He's not green in this. He is truly ready for this, and I believe he has. I think he has North Carolina ready, but I just believe that emotion factor is going to be something that when it gets down and it gets in that huddle, that's going to be the rallying cry. And I believe because of that, you can put out all the shooting, take out all the stats. It's going to come down to hustle plays. It's going to come down who wants it, how bad do you want it, and it's going to come from right here. Right here. This is what's going to decide the game. Who wants to go get it more? And I believe that when it's all said and done, Coach K and Duke will punch their ticket.
UNC, Duke. So how about that? All of us getting our different picks here today for the Final Four. Again, Duke and North Carolina, again, one of the best games I think we're going to see all year. I think we remember the build-up for that last home game for Coach K at Cameron Indoor. It was a week of press. It was a week of, photos and videos, and they kind of built it up like a Final Four, if you will, in that way. And Duke did not answer the call in that game. They were blown out. I mean, obviously it was a big day. Maybe they thought bigger than themselves. It was a Coach K day. But I think it was good that they got that out of the way. They went through all that. They've had the pressure on them in a big game like that.
Because the emotions are going another way that game.
Exactly right.
Yes.
Huge. So now that they've got that out of the way, I think that was a big part in getting them ready for this one. And I'm going to roll with the Duke Blue Devils.
Of course
again.
you are.
I'm sorry, Jason. I'm going with the Duke Blue Devils. But like I said, I think that last home game for them, I think that was a good, intro. Get that out of the way. They couldn't play any worse than they played in that game.
Yes,
they had to deal with all that. Now they're here in New Orleans. It's not going to be as big of a deal because they've been through that pressure.
I think it's even bigger
earlier.
of a deal.
I think you could be right. I think in totality, I think it is. Yeah. But I think the fact that they've been through similar steps or similar pressure, I think, and obviously this could be new, but I think it helps them out there.
I think because this could be the absolute final game. Like they knew that game at Cameron Indoor, they still have more games to play. But I think by this being the absolute possible chance of a final game, I don't know if they're going to be able to handle the pressure. And it's not just being a homer or anything like that. I just think that I'm not really sure if the pressure will burst their pipes or not, so to speak. But it's going to be a great game. Like I said, I think whoever has the ball last will win. Of course, I'm hoping that the Tar Heels win. But honestly, I can speak for all of the fans as far as Duke and North Carolina. This isn't really a game that we want to see. Because you're going to be on the edge of your seat the whole game, nail biting, walking around, pacing, closing your eyes, and people hitting trying to shoot free throws. So
it means that much more, right?
It means, yeah. This is a game where I've talked to a few friends throughout the week. They're like, man, I'm gonna watch it, but I'm gonna keep quiet. I'm not talking any trash. I'm gonna keep quiet.
Right. Yep.
So it's one of those things where, for the state of North Carolina, this is probably the biggest game that they've ever, watched between two of their college teams. So
I think it's going to be 8 points or less.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I think it's going to be an 8 points or less game. I really do. I don't see it being any type of blowout or anything. I really think both they are so well coached. I'm looking forward to it.
Right, it's gonna be a great one. And the interesting also part here on DETV is we all have different national championship matchups. So somebody on our championship preview show is going to be right, and the other two of us are going to be wrong. So it's going to be interesting to see who's
I've been right so far.
Making to the national championship. So it's going to be interesting again.
Trust me.
Villanova and Kansas, UNC and Duke. It's going to be a great Final Four in New Orleans. And again, these coaches that are left in the Final Four are combined, or schools, I should say, combined 17 national championships. And again, all these Blue Bloods are going to meet on Saturday down in New Orleans. So that'll wrap it up for Jason McCall, Nick Alessandrini, and Joe Richmond here on your DETV Final Four preview. You're going to hear from us again ahead of the national championship game, most likely on Monday night. So we will see you then. Enjoy Saturday night. Should be a great slate of Final Four games.